Hi y'all, this is me, Ivan Verstyuk, and this is City of Kiev, Ukraine's capital. It's September 12th, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how the war feels from the inside of mine, inside as a person who's experienced each day of war, all of them here in this city, without relocating anywhere or getting evacuated or just moving around. I did some traveling around the northern region of Ukraine to see how damages in places like Bucha or Hostomel, Irpin also in other places. However, I stayed here. So the very first day of the war, which was February 24th, 2022, this was a big day in terms of how people reacted. Watching the people's reaction was the most surprising to me. To me, natural reaction to the news about the invasion, full-scale one, was that you should get prepared for at least 1 year of war. You gotta have money reserves, you gotta have food reserves, and you gotta have plan what you're gonna do. Whether you're gonna join the army, my choice was doing the information warfare, since I was a journalist back then, and this was like the easiest track for me to choose to pick, something I knew how to do, something that I definitely knew that would be a contribution to Ukraine's overall victory. That's why I did this. While what I saw on the streets was just people immediately taking the tram route to escape, mostly to Poland. Some went through Moldova's border all the way to Romania, Austria, Hungary, France, Portugal, and Britain. And this was a surprise. This wasn't a surprise for my neighbors. This wasn't a surprise for my peers in the newsroom I was working at. But to me, this came as a surprise. It doesn't feel like a natural reaction. Whenever there is a war, you should immediately like collect your stuff and move around. Still, I mean, to live in Poland, you gotta have a plan. What you gonna do for living there? You had no language. You gotta find a job. Otherwise, you won't be living a sustainable life. You'll need something to do just to occupy yourself, because during the war, having nothing to do is the worst business. Getting bored is the worst business. People who are bored during the war, they end up at the criminal types asking for money with a knife near the shopping mall and trying to get a beer or two to treat their hangover. That's what those tourists end up with. So the very first day of the war came like a big surprise to me personally. Then there was an interesting period in summer last year, or summer 2022, when we were doing the counter advance in the northeast, retaking the Kharkiv region. The offensives are usually easier than the defensives. Why? Because when you're on the offense, you're driven by the motivation that you're bringing Ukrainian flags to people and territories who want to see it. But it's usually much harder to defend the territory which has been overtaken from the enemy after the enemy tries to do own counteroffensive. So back then, when the Ukrainian army was shown its counteroffensive capabilities in summer last year, it was kind of boring in Kiev. Nothing was really happening. It was like a period when it was like on pause each day. You could easily take a walk. You could go to a shopping mall if you need to buy something. You could talk to people. You could meet people. Most of the residents of Kiev were living outside the city. The city still felt empty. While it was like 90% empty in the beginning of the war, then it was like 80% empty. And it's quite comfortable, to be honest with you, to live in a city which is pretty empty. You get empty trains, you get empty buses, empty shops, everything's empty. And you're like, for many companies, like this unique client who's living here. And when you come to get yourself food, groceries, they're treating like, oh gosh, you came over, we're gonna give you the best price we have, we're gonna give you the best products we have, and you're gonna receive the best service we're able to provide. And now it feels like it was somewhat an artificial pause, which was part of the Russian planning. I do not think that this was like a natural state of these things. Russians were preparing their civil military hybrid warfare for the city of Kiev that they started doing after they assassinated Ukraine's interior minister, Denis Monastyrsky. And after he was assassinated on a helicopter, we started having all kinds of issues in Kiev with civilian military warfare from Russia, with border provocations, with car accidents, which I do believe they were orchestrated by the KGB in Moscow. And then life in Kiev got increasingly hard. when just to get to the city's downtown, you get to spend 7 to 8 hours because nothing works properly. Transportation system is in a collapse. Criminal types are trying to take away your money, your cash, your wallet. They might be threatening you with a knife. I had several fist fights because people were attacking me, trying to take over my belongings, my phone, my watch, my silver necklace that I wear, and this is something I was prepared for. I know the basics of fist fighting because I was grown up in the Western District of Kiev, where the criminal activity and criminal traditions are well known. And in the 90s, we had these horrible times with people getting robbed and harassed and threatened and intimidated daily, weekly, monthly. So to me, again, this was just a challenge and another lesson and something that educated me to becoming a better military analyst, which I am now. But again, to many here in Kiev, to many civilians, this came as huge headache that they couldn't sleep with, that they would be traumatized with, and that they would need somehow to get through this with psychological rehabilitation. And talking to psychologists, talking to people that have solidarity hearts and able to talk through stuff that in a way that makes you feel easier. Then the other thing I want to mention is living through explosions. I've lived through several explosions, which was artillery and which was aircraft-produced ones. Well, with artillery, it's worse. Usually, when stuff just explodes over your head in the skies, it still feels that it's somewhere a distance, and it won't hit you. With artillery, things just start shaking and trembling around you. I had this special moment on March 11th last year when Russian tank T-72 hit the place I live in. And this was crazy. Windows broken, books from the shelves just falling down on my head. And back then I had paintings on the shelves too. Everything just fell down on my head. And it feels horrible. The worst thing, I was at home all by myself. When you're with other people around, it feels easier. You can exchange opinions. You can say, gosh, what's happening? When you're alone, you don't do this. Your natural reaction is just oh my gosh, what should I be doing? So my decision was I just went outside and waited until the artillery shelling was over. But this is hard. This is hard because you usually think, well, this is not going to happen to me. It's going to happen to other people. Other people are going to get injured. Other people are going to die. Well, I'm going to be okay. I have this feeling I'm going to be okay. Well, this is not the case. No one can have security and safety guarantees during the war. Everyone should be prepared to get killed, to get injured, to see the doctor if something happens to you, to have money reserved to see the doctor. If you don't have money, well, you won't be able to see a good commercial doctor, while state-owned clinics and municipal-owned clinics, you should have these long lines of retirees that won't allow you to see the doctor because they need it too. So these are several things that matter during the war. I just want to share with you at this point. Yesterday was 9/11, which was a big day for the United States when they were attacked by these terrorist planes, jets, in the Pentagon building and the World Trade Center building in New York City. Well, indeed, I think surviving through those experiences makes you a different person. And the war in Ukraine made me a different person. I have to admit this. Glory to the Ukrainian nation.